The lake blend under a hazy moon like someone had spilled a giant glitter bottle across the water. Crickets chirped, frogs croaked, and somewhere our harmonica wheezed a lonely off-key note according to legend. This was Camp Crystal Lake, the cursed place where every few years a killer rose from the water to avenge his mother's death. But this year, well, let's just say Jason Voorhees was running a little behind schedule. The cabin sat crookedly on stilts, leaning so far to the left it looked like it had lost a bet with gravity. Smoke curled from the chimney, mostly from Chad's attempts at campfire cooking. He'd burned hot dogs to a crisp and claimed it was gourmet. Chad, whose personality could be summarized as tank top energy, lounged on the couch, exhaling a cloud of smoke that could probably be measured in pounds. Bro, what if Camp Crystal Lake is just like a metaphor for hydration? He murmured, squinting at a stick he was waving in the air like it was a philosophical wand. Mindy, holding a slightly singed flashlight, stared at him. You've been metaphorically hydrated for 2 hours, Chad. You're talking to a flashlight. Then why is it handshake, hon? Chad asked, narrowing his eyes at the flickering beam that wobbled like it had a mind of its own. Kyle, staring out the window at a tree that seemed to wave at him, nodded solemnly. That's probably Jason, dude. Jenny, ever the practical one, lifted a brow. If Jason's here, he can, roll the next one. She gestured toward the joint, circling around the room. Meanwhile, somewhere in the woods, Jason Voorhees emerged from the shadows. His hulking frame and gleaming machete were the very picture of terror, until he tripped on an extension cord and face-planted spectacularly into a log. Whoa, Forrest just ate that dude, Chad observed, clearly impressed. No, that's the killer! Mindy protested, though she didn't exactly look panicked. Jason groaned, staggered to his feet, and tried to swing his machete dramatically, only to drop it straight into the lake with a satisfying plunk. Bro just rage quit his own murder attempt. Kyle muttered, shaking his head.
The group decided to inspect the cabin for snacks and supplies. Jenny opened the fridge, revealing a sad collection of pizza rolls and an ancient half bag of chips. Guys, this is tragic. Chad said, holding a limp slice of pizza like it was a national treasure. We need sustenance and maybe enlightenment. Jason lurked nearby. Peeking from behind a tree, he adjusted his mask and tried to look terrifying, but slipped on a wet patch of moss and landed in a puddle with a loud splat. Whoa, nature just gave him a hug, Kyle whispered. Mindy rolled her eyes. Chill, he's probably dead. Jason struggled up, dripping water and mud, and attempted another dramatic approach toward the cabin. He raised his machete, only to trip over Chad's discarded skateboard. The weapon flew into a nearby bush where a family of raccoons promptly claimed it. That's kind of impressive, Chad murmured, puffing thoughtfully. By the time the group gathered around the campfire later, roasting marshmallows and debating the proper technique for optimal s'mores, Jason had positioned himself behind a bush, machete less than grumpy. If Jason's a zombie, does weed even, affect him? Mindy wondered aloud, handing Chad a half-burnt marshmallow. Depends sativa or indica. Chad replied, thoughtfully offering her the snack. Jason crept closer, eyes gleaming through the mask, until Jenny, ever chill, handed him a s'more. He froze then. Cautiously, he took it. It was the first act of kindness Jason Voorhees had received in 40 years. He tried to swing his machete again, but remembered it was gone. Instead, he punched a tree. A branch fell on him, knocking him flat on his back. Yeah, definitely bad vibes. Jenny said, taking a bite of her marshmallow. As the night settled over the lake, the stoners laughed, passed the joint, and argued about the best pizza toppings for zombie encounters. Jason, meanwhile, lay in the shadows, pondering life, marshmallows, and why he even tried to murder these guys. Camp Crystal Lake had seen its first night of high horror, and already the killer was failing spectacularly. The next morning, the sun struggled to rise over Camp Crystal Lake, hitting the cabin like it was auditioning for a low-budget horror movie. The inside smelled of burnt marshmallows, pizza grease, and faintly of regret. Chad stretched like a man who had just discovered his own spine could pop in 12 new places simultaneously. "Bro, I think my aura's hungry," he mumbled, eyeballing a half-eaten bag of Doritos. Mindy, sitting cross-legged on the floor and examining a suspiciously large spider that had crawled onto Kyle's sock, sighed. "You mean your stomach?" Kyle waved lazily at her. "Nah, aura's legit. Mine's rumbling too. I can feel it." Jenny, practical as ever, had already started organizing supplies. "Okay, so we need snacks, water, and maybe a first aid kit." I'm not trying to explain to a paramedic that Jason Voorhees accidentally got a Dorito stuck in his mask. Somewhere in the woods, Jason Voorhees had recovered from his branch to face incident and was attempting a slow, menacing approach to the cabin. He crept forward, machete in hand, but tripped over a rogue garden gnome left by a previous, more festive cabin owner. "Oof!" Jason grunted. He rolled like a giant, angry log, landed in a bush, and muttered incoherently through his mask, "Mother!" The instructions are insufficient. Back in the cabin, Chad decided it was a perfect moment to try cooking protein pancakes using a blowtorch, 2 eggs, and a questionable bag of protein powder. "Bro, it's like chemistry, but edible," he explained, flipping a half-burnt pancake onto the ceiling. It stuck. "Ceiling pancakes are a new trend," Kyle remarked, pointing. "We're pioneers." Mindy groaned. "No, we're endangered species. If Jason shows up and sees that, he might think it's like some sacrilege or warning."
Jason, meanwhile, had finally made it to the cabin porch. He raised his machete dramatically and immediately tripped on the welcome mat, sliding across the porch like a horror-themed slip and slide. The landing was spectacular, involving a minor collision with a stack of plastic chairs. "Whoa! Porch just fought a giant," Chad said, peeking out the window, thoroughly impressed. Jenny rolled her eyes. "I think it lost," feeling slightly dejected but still murderous. Jason attempted another approach, this time from the kitchen window. He climbed onto the sill only to discover it was sticky from Chad's pancake residue. His masked face now bore a thin layer of syrup. "You know," Kyle said, examining the scene, "this is kind of sad, like sad horror. Maybe we should invite him in for brunch." Inside, Chad had finally succeeded in creating a pancake tower. He proudly held it up. Behold, edible engineering. Jason, outside, looked longingly at the pancakes, forgot his murderous intent entirely, and attempted to grab one through the window, only to knock the stack over. Pancakes fell everywhere, some onto the porch, some onto his mask. Some mysteriously disappeared into a raccoon that had been watching from the woods. "Oof, these kids are tricky," Jason muttered,
licking pancake syrup off his glove. Jenny finally shook her head. We're doomed. But in a fun way. As the sun climbed higher, the cabin became a chaotic ballet of stoners, burnt food, and a very incompetent killer who couldn't seem to land a blow without injuring himself first. Later, as they all sat around eating half-burnt pancakes and discussing the moral implications of sharing food with murderers, a faint, muffled plunk came from the porch. Jason had slipped into the lake while trying to retrieve a particularly ambitious flapjack. Nature's got him again, Chad observed. It's like survival of the fittest, but like nature's cheating. Mindy just sighed, sprinkling powdered sugar over her breakfast as if it would make everything better. Welcome to Camp Crystal Lake, where the legend says a killer roams, but mostly just trips. And somewhere in the distance, the harmonica played a lone off-key note. Jason surfaced in the lake, staring longingly at the cabin, pancakes floating around him like a sad breakfast salad. The morning fog hovered over Crystal Lake like a damp, judgmental blanket. The stoners had decided the only logical course of action after cabin chaos was a team-building canoe trip. Guys, we gotta respect the lake, Chad announced, balancing a paddle like it was Excalibur. It's majestic. Maybe hungry? Kyle, already wearing a snorkel for aesthetic purposes, nodded solemnly. I feel it. It's watching us. Probably Jason. Jenny rolled her eyes. Jason's been out there all morning. He can't even navigate a porch without face planting. Mindy adjusted her life vest, which was slightly too small and slightly on backwards. Yeah, but he's persistent and like dedicated to failing. Meanwhile, Jason Voorhees had emerged from the lake, wet and syrupy from the pancake incident, looking like a soggy lawn ornament. He gripped his machete with renewed determination, and only to slip on a lily pad and go belly first into the water with a spectacular splash. Woo! Splash just murdered that guy, Chad observed, shading his eyes. Back on the canoe, the stoners had begun paddling, or at least paddling in their own unique ways. Chad was spinning in circles. Kyle was trying to meditate mid-paddle. Mindy was using the oar as a baton for an invisible orchestra, and Jenny was just trying not to tip over. Jason, still wet and still murderous, decided a stealthy underwater approach was in order. He dove beneath the canoe, machete raised, but the paddle accidentally clipped him in the face as Chad attempted a dramatic 360 spin. Oof! Bro just got paddled to death by vibes. Kyle muttered. Jason resurfaced, sputtering, coughing, and realizing his machete was now inexplicably lodged in a floating log. Mother. Instructions unclear. He wheezed. Dude, did the killer just? Chad asked, pointing. He's like flailing for a weapon like he's auditioning for synchronized swimming. Mindy laughed so hard she nearly fell out of the canoe. I think he's having a crisis psychologically and physically. Jenny, ever practical, seize the moment. Okay, if we just toss him a Dorito, maybe he'll chill or get snack-related PTSD. They tossed a single nacho across the water. Jason, eyes widening behind his mask, slowly reached for it, only to swallow a frog instead. He croaked indignantly. Nature's got a vendetta. Kyle whispered,
By mid-afternoon, the stoners had given up canoeing as a murder prevention strategy and had begun constructing a floating snack bar on a small raft. Jason, sitting waist deep in the lake, looked on with a combination of envy and existential dread.
Bro, he just wants, like a Capri Sun, Chad explained, pointing. Mindy nodded solemnly. He's evolving into a sad, soggy snack enthusiast. And as the sun began to set, Jason Voorhees, wet, hungry, and utterly incompetent, tried one last lunge toward the raft. He tipped over a small pail of water, lost balance, and ended up wrapped in a rope intended to secure their floating snack bar. Whoa, snack bar just defeated the killer, Kyle said, shaking his head. Jenny smirked, munching on a marshmallow. Legend says he's cursed, but maybe it's just clumsy. Somewhere, the harmonica wheezed an off-key note. Jason surfaced, tied in the rope, holding a soggy Dorito like it was the holy grail for the first time in 40 years, he wondered. Maybe he didn't need to kill anyone. Maybe he just needed snacks. The forest outside the cabin had a life of its own, or maybe it just had a lot of low-hanging branches, roots, and suspiciously placed mud puddles. Either way, the stoners decided it was the perfect setting for naturation and mild chaos. Bro, the forest is like sentient. Chad mused, stepping over a log with dramatic flair. It's judging my vibe. Kyle, balancing a small pack of snacks on his head for forest camouflage, nodded seriously. I feel the judgment. Maybe the trees are Jason's spies. Jenny groaned, you guys are insane. He can't even tie his own shoes, let alone orchestrate an army of saplings. Meanwhile, Jason Voorhees had recovered from the lake incident. He had retrieved his soggy Dorito and his machete, which were still bent from the log collision. He emerged from the tree line, trying his best to look terrifying, which was immediately undermined when he tripped on a root and ended up sliding face first into a mud puddle. Whoa, horror just hit a mud patch, Chad observed, snapping a blurry picture for posterity. Mindy, carrying a stick she dubbed her forest justice bat, and raised an eyebrow. He's kind of pathetic, but also committed. The stoners wandered deeper, completely ignoring the lurking killer. Jenny suggested a foraging exercise to find edible mushrooms. Chad immediately tried to eat a questionable orange fungus. Bro, that's totally fine, he said, chewing slowly. I read on the internet. Somewhere. Maybe. It's fine. Jason attempted a sneaky approach from behind a tree, machete raised. He crouched low, slow motion style, like in all the classic horror movies, and promptly fell backward into a pile of leaves, making a sound suspiciously like a whoopee cushion. Forrest just farted, Kyle whispered. Natural defense mechanism, I think. The stoners, oblivious, set up an accidental trap, a trip horror made from Mindy's rope, intended for a team coordination exercise as Jason stepped on it mid-lunge, causing him to spin around like a dizzy ballerina and end up wrapped in a hammock. Nature's got a sense of humor, Jenny said, helping him untangle, but not really. This is the most entertained I've been all summer. Jason finally freed himself, wiped blood off his mask, and charged again, only to slip on a mushroom Chad had eaten half of and faceplant into a mossy rock. Chad sighed. He's like, slow motion, dude. Slow motion. Horror. Mindy pointed at a nearby beaver dam. Maybe he's just environmentally conscious, respecting wildlife. By the time the sun began to set, Jason Voorhees was exhausted, mud-covered, rope-wrapped, and snack-deprived. He sank to the base of a tree. The stoners had found a perfect clearing for a makeshift fire pit and were roasting forest-foraged marshmallows. Jason, curiosity piqued, reached for one with his gloved hand. He burned it slightly, cursed silently, and then smiled behind the mast. For the first time, the terrifying legend of Camp Crystal Lake seemed friendly. "See, Chad?" Jenny said, handing him a second marshmallow. "Even Jason's just a big old stoner at heart." Somewhere in the woods, a harmonica squeaked an off-key note as if giving the day's antics a soundtrack. Jason nodded solemnly, and the forest seemed to agree.
The next morning, the sun slanted lazily over Camp Crystal Lake, highlighting the faint scent of burnt marshmallows and slightly crispy Doritos. The stoners were still half asleep, nursing hangovers from last night's hybrid campfire meditation and snack marathon. "Bro, is water like liquid sky?" Chad murmured, staring at the lake with wide eyes. Kyle, balancing a half-eaten granola bar on his knee, nodded sagely. "Yeah, but like, it's sticky sky if you fall in." Jenny and Mindy were more practical. "We should check out the canoes." Jenny suggested maybe fish, maybe just paddle. Maybe like avoid being eaten by an incompetent killer. Jason Voorhees, lurking in the reeds, had spent the night formulating his revenge. His plan, a slow, terrifying approach from the lake. Step 1, scare them while they paddle. Step 2, glorious murder. Step 3, ultimate respect from horror movie fans. Step 1 failed immediately as Jason pushed off from the reeds. His foot slipped on a slimy rock. He flailed, arms windmilling, and ended up belly first in the water. His machete floated off like a lost toy. "Dude, that dude just did aquatic yoga?" Chad asked, blinking. Mindy squinted at the lake. "That's him, right? That's definitely Jason or a very angry log." Undeterred, Jason swam toward the canoes, which the stoners were just now arguing about. Chad had claimed the shiny canoe of mystical gains, while Kyle insisted the wooden canoe of enlightenment was more balanced for chai energy. They finally launched, moving at a pace that could only be described as slowly collapsing cheese. Jason lurked underwater like a horror movie shark, but every time he tried to lunge, a fish swam into him, then a frog, then a road lily pad slapped him across the face. "Bro, nature is defending us," Kyle said, ducking under a low branch. "The lake has our back." Jenny, paddling gracefully in the canoe of reason, noticed something. Jason's machete was stuck in the mud by the shore. She pointed, "Oh look! His murder tool is taking a nap!" Jason, frustrated, climbed out and tried to swing again, but his flippers, which he had impulsively decided to wear for enhanced aquatic terror, caused him to trip over his own feet. He toppled sideways into Chad's canoe, sending marshmallows flying and Kyle's granola bar into the water. "Dude!" Chad yelled, "My gains!" "Everything's fine," Jenny said calmly, adjusting her sunglasses. "This is character building." Eventually, Jason attempted one final dramatic approach. He lurched forward, machete raised high and straight into a conveniently low-hanging branch. He spun, twirled, and fell into the water again, surfacing just long enough to sputter. Kyle raised a hand. "Bro, you okay? You're kinda wet."
and broken. Jason, soaked and defeated, grabbed a floating log and flopped on you, drifting helplessly. He had failed miserably, yet somehow remained terrifying in theory. By the time the sun fully rose, the stoners were lounging on the shore, roasting the soggy marshmallows that have survived Jason's iconic fiasco. Jason, still clinging in the log like a deranged beaver, was handed a marshmallow by Chad hesitating. He took it, and the first bite seemed to calm his murderous instincts. "See," Jenny said, smiling, "even horror villains need snacks." Jason Voorhees, master incompetence and new stoner convert, floated silently on the lake. Somewhere in the trees, the harmonica played another off-key, melancholy note. The legend of Crystal Lake continued, but this time, it was just a lake.
The cabin smelled like a cross between burnt marshmallows, Doritos, and a faint hint of panic. Chad was sprawled across the couch, trying to meditate with one hand and hold a half-eaten bag of chips in the other. "Dude, the universe. It's crunchy," he murmured, crunching loudly. Mindy groaned, sweeping up what was left of last night's marshmallow massacre. "Chad, please. You're going to attract bears, or, like, a more competent killer than the one we already have." Kyle leaned against the wall, inspecting his canoe-shaped footstool. "Bro, I think Jason's maybe lurking, or staring, or both." Jenny, ever practical, peeked through the window. Sure enough, Jason Voorhees crouched behind a tree outside, machete in hand, looking confused. "Dude, he's kinda sad," Kyle whispered. "Or maybe call him later." Jason tried to make a dramatic entrance. He swung his machete through the cabin doorway, but misjudged the distance and ended up slamming it into the ceiling. A single wooden beam snapped, falling directly onto his foot. He yelped in a surprisingly high-pitched squeal. "Bro, I think the legend needs, like, a manual," Chad said. Jason staggered back, rubbing his foot, trying again. This time he swung, tripped over a loose rug, and landed in a pile of blankets. The stoners burst out laughing. "Dude," Mindy said, handing him a blanket, "just chill. You don't have to kill anyone, just vibe." Jason stared at her, then at Chad, then at the bag of Doritos. Slowly, like a very confused puppy, he picked one up and ate it. Chad nodded approvingly. "See, snacks fix everything. Welcome to the crew, man!" Encouraged, Jason tried to make another move, but Mindy rolled a yoga mat in front of him. Kyle waved a paddle, and Jenny offered him a joint she had been saving. Hesitant, he took it, and immediately his mask fogged up. He coughed, spluttered, then managed a victorious puff. "Dude," Chad said, "he's rolling." Jason Voorhees, the world's most incompetent killer, suddenly became the world's newest stoner. He sat cross-legged on the cabin floor, carefully attempting to roll a blunt, his massive hands fumbling hilariously with the paper. "Bro, you got this," Jenny encouraged. "Just tuck it, twist it, whatever." Kyle offered guidance. "Yeah, like that. No, the other side. Wait. Yeah, close enough." By the end of the afternoon, Jason Voorhees had produced a lopsided, slightly leafy blunt. He inhaled, exhaled, and sat back with a contented sigh. The stoners cheered. "You see," Chad said, "even the killer can chill. Even legends need, like, herb therapy." Jason munching Doritos and now fully engrossed in rolling techniques, had forgotten entirely about either vengeance or horror tropes. The stoners were safe, the cabin was a mess, and somehow Camp Crystal Lake had gained the weirdest, most confused honorary member of its community. So calm, and maybe a little stoned.
The sun rose over Camp Crystal Lake, painting the water a glittering green gold. Like it was trying really hard to impress. A stoner, aesthetic photographer, Chad stretched, popping a bag of chips with a satisfying crunch while Mindy checked the cabbing for residual horror vibes. "Okay, team," Jenny said, yawning. "We survived the night. Jason is weirdly chill. But I vote we do something like water sports or something. We need energy." Kyle, staring at the lake with intense curiosity, nodded solemnly. "Yeah, like canoeing or kayaking or whatever floats." Chad rolled his eyes. "Dude, canoeing is cardio. We need less cardio, more munchies." Jason sat on the dock, trying to roll another blunt while simultaneously holding a fishing pole. He had perfected the art of multitasking. One massive hand rolling, the other reeling in a suspiciously small fish. "Bro," Kyle whispered, "he's fishing and rolling. That's impressive." Jenny grabbed a canoe and handed it to Chad. "Let's go, don't tip it over or do. But like, be careful." They paddled out, laughing, joking, and occasionally tipping slightly. Not Jason, though. He had a firm grip on the dock, his mind fully focused on the science of rolling. Meanwhile, in the reeds, Jason's instincts kicked in. He saw movement, footprints in the mud. He raised his machete and promptly fell backwards into a pile of lily pads. "Dude, bro," Chad yelled, "you okay? You're a scary marshmallow!" Jason emerged, drenched, branches stuck in his mask, and the stoners couldn't stop laughing. He tried to shake off the embarrassment, picked up a floating log like a weapon and missed completely, sending it crashing into the lake with a monumental splash. Jenny shook her head, laughing. "You know, you could just chill. Maybe have a s'more." Jason blinked and slowly, carefully, he accepted a marshmallow on a stick. He toasted it, bit it, and a small smile under the mask formed. Chad nudged him. "See? Snacks! Murder life lesson!" They spent the day paddling, floating, and playing ridiculous lake games. Jason attempted several attack maneuvers, sneaky lunge, shadowy splashes, but each ended in spectacular failure. Tripping over fishing lines, getting tangled in oars, or accidentally launching himself into the air and landing in a canoe with a thud. Cal, meanwhile, attempted to teach him the basics of water yoga. Jason's balance was questionable. His first pose ended with a roll into the lake and a loud wet splat. Mindy offered him a joint from the safety of the dock. "Try breathing. And maybe not drowning." Jason inhaled, exhaled, and floated on his back. He stared up at the sky, his machete floating nearby like a forgotten tool. For the first time, he felt peace. As evening approached, the stoners returned to the cabin. Jason followed a machete in one hand, rolled blunt in the other, and a small fish dangling from his fishing line. "Okay," Chad said, wide-eyed. This is friendship. This is legendary." Jenny nodded. "We came for horror, got incompetence, and somehow we made a stoner slasher, buddy." Jason stayed behind, carefully lit the joint, took a puff and leaned back on the dock, fishing pole at the ready, marshmallow in mouth. Camp Crystal Lake had never seen such a harmonious stone chaos.
Night fell over Camp Crystal Lake. The sky swirled with pinkish-orange clouds like someone had spilled neon paint across the horizon. The group gathered around the campfire again, snacks and joints scattered across the wooden table. Jason sat a few feet away, mask slightly askew, carefully rolling another blunt. "Okay," Chad said, holding up a bag of Doritos like a general inspecting troops. "Tonight, we defend the cabin from, everything zombies, bears, evil lake spirits. Maybe Jason's other cousins, basically, apocalypse." Kyle nodded solemnly. "Yeah, full-scale stoner apocalypse mode. No half measures." Jason, puffing thoughtfully on a freshly rolled blunt, nodded in agreement. His machete leaned against the table, completely unused. The first attack came quickly. A raccoon, apparently high on garbage, charged the cabin. Chad tried to scare it with a flashlight, but tripped over a log, landing face first in a puddle. The raccoon, unimpressed, stole a Dorito and waddled off. Jason, seeing the chaos, attempted a heroic swing of his machete, but slipped on the puddle himself, spinning like a top before landing in a heap next to Chad. "Kiki!" "Ow, bad vibes," he muttered. Jenny handed him another joint. "Maybe focus on meditation instead of murder." Jason inhaled, exhaled, and stared into the fire. He was learning. Next came the zombie attack. Kyle's little brother wearing a Halloween mask. 4 extra spook crawled out of the bushes yelling brains. Chad shrieked, Mindy grabbed a marshmallow, and Jenny facepalmed. Jason crept forward with machete raised, but promptly tripped over discarded fishing rod. Landing in a pile of leaves, he popped up, smoking the joint, and nodded to chill for murder. By midnight, the stoners had decided to hold a blunt ritual on the dock. Everyone, including Jason, passing a giant joint, toasting to surviving the night without anyone or anything getting seriously hurt. Chad leaned back, eyes glazed. "Dude, we just turned Camp Crystal Lake into a Zen stoner paradise." Jason, phoning the joint with surprising dexterity, nodded solemnly. He finally managed to take a deep puff without accidentally setting anything on fire. His inner peace was complete. "Look," Jenny said, munching on a marshmallow, "I think Jason is officially our stoner slasher friend now. He won't kill anyone." "Probably." Kyle squinted. "Yeah, and he rolls a mean blunt." Chad raised his Doritos to Jason, the only slasher who can't slay, but can blaze. Jason gave a thumbs up through his mask. The fire crackled, the lake shimmered. Somewhere a frog let out a wet, musical ribbit. And in that moment, Camp Crystal Lake was safe from murder. At least chaos, confusion, and stone camaraderie reigned supreme. Instead, they passed around the giant joint one last time. Jason took the final hit, leaned back on the dock, and hummed an oddly contented tune through his mask. For the first time in decades, being a slasher didn't feel like a curse. It felt like a lifestyle.
The sun rose over Camp Crystal Lake like a lazy orange pancake. Smoke from last night's blunt ritual still drifted across the dock, blending with the faint smell of burnt marshmallows and whatever Chad had spilled on the cabin floor. Jason Voorhees sat cross-legged on the porch, rolling a perfect blunt. He had a new sense of purpose. Stoner mentor, camp guardian, and accidental life coach. "Okay," Chad said, rubbing his eyes, "so who's teaching him to roll like that?" Jenny shrugged, apparently the universe. Kyle yawned. "I feel like he's evolved into, like, Stoner Jason."
Meanwhile, Mindy set up a training obstacle course for him, a wobbly table stacked with snacks, a swinging rope, and a blindfolded target shaped like a marshmallow monster Jason stared. Then he tried to complete the course. First attempt, he tripped over the rope. Second attempt, he accidentally catapulted a Dorito bag into the lake. Third attempt, he rolled a joint while balancing on one foot and nailed it victory puff. See, Jenny said, smiling. Progress. As the group lounged on the dock, passing a giant joint and tossing burnt marshmallows at each other, a sudden scream pierced the morning calm. Zombie! Squirrel! Chad yelled! Jason went to action. Sort of, he swung his machete, but instead of attacking it, hit a tree, which dropped a beehive onto the squirrel, sending it fleeing. The stoners erupted in laughter. Dude, he just saved us. By accident. Kyle said, eyes wide. Jason nodded, taking a sip of her Joey puff. Kill the vibe! Never blaze it instead! The rest of the day was a blur of hilarity. Jason teaching Chad how to properly toast marshmallows without setting himself on fire. Kyle convincing Jason that yoga stretches were essential slasher fitness. Mindy making him try kale smoothies, which he spat out into the lake. Jenny showing him how to tie-dye a t-shirt with Dorito dust, because why not? By evening, the cabin looked like a festival exploded inside. Colorful smoke swirled through the air. Laughter echoed across the lake. And Jason Voorhees, the once terrifying slasher, was now the camp's honorary chill guardian. As they gathered for one final sunset joint, Chad raised a burnt marshmallow in a solemn toast. To Jason, the only slasher who can't slay, but can slay at rolling! Jason took a long puff, leaned back and gave a slow, satisfied nod. Somewhere deep inside the mask he smiled. Maybe for the first time in his cursed life, being Jason Voorhees wasn't about terror. It was about friendship, snacks, and mastering the art of the perfect blunt. The lake shimmered, the frogs croaked somewhere, a harmonica wheezed a jubilant off-key tune. Camp Crystal Lake had never been safer or more stoned.